the war as it enters week 5, and Donald Trump's war plans seem to be going haywire. Because what else explains US going after civilian infrastructure in Iran and boasting about it? Iran's tallest bridge has been struck, killing 8 people and injuring almost 100. A so-called obliterated Iran now appears to be anything but obliterated. They now claim to have shot down an American fighter jet. In fact, the Iranian media has also claimed that an American pilot may have been captured. The frustration is showing. Trump, the commander-in-chief of US forces, has directed the US Army chief to step down right in the middle of the war. What led to this sudden change of leadership? Was it an attempt to quell a rebellion brewing in the ranks amidst growing disagreements with Trump's battle plans, or is it part of a bigger strategy to look for scapegoats in a war that America is clearly doesn't seem to be winning? Because the US president has also ousted Attorney General Pam Bondi, triggering speculations that FBI Director Kash Patel and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard could be next on Trump's firing list. The question now is, are these signs of Donald Trump increasingly getting impatient and looking for scapegoats? And what will this translate into? Escalation or end of war? That's the question we're asking.
To hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death.
You're watching the News Hour at 9, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining me on this debate is Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow at the ORF, Peter Kuznick, author and Professor of History, Director at the Nuclear Studies Institute of American University, Milad Rabbani, former Iranian diplomat, Vibhuti Jha, ex-Republican candidate for New York Assembly. First to you, Mr. Rabbani. Mr. Rabbani, a bridge being blown off, hundreds getting injured, 8 people dying. Are we seeing any end to this war that is going on? Is there any negotiation that was hinted at several times in the last 10 days? Anything in terms of negotiations on peace, or are we only looking at escalation?
Hello, thank you for having me, and hello to dear colleagues. It's a very important and good question. For addressing your question, I can tell you, when you look at this war, it is, I believe, the first war in the history, in the human history, that the commander-in-chief, I mean Khamenei, have been killed in the first moment of the war. So it has an implication. What is the implication? The implication shows the Iranian regime, they have no respect for the lives of people. Even they are crippled in this matter. They cannot defend even themselves, even their commander-in-chief. And they are ready to do everything for their interest. U.S. attack to some structures, infrastructures, and it started by attacking to some Iranian oil refineries. And it will continue in the next days. And if Trump thought with this pretext he can submit the regime, it's a big mistake. It is absolutely gibberish for the regime. They don't care about their infrastructures, as they don't care about the life of people. By destroying the infrastructures, by killing more people, the regime will take it as its advantage. And I want to tell you, even still there is no funeral ceremony for Khamenei, the killed person. You know why? Because the regime knows how to take the advantages of this. They are looking for a good moment to do it, to provoke more people. Many people in Iran, they were opposite of the regime. Okay. But now with this Trump did, they return to Trump. And if Trump continues this, I see, for your answer the question, addressing your question, I see the escalation. The only way to stop this war
is the worry that the world is staring at. And Vibhuti Jha, I want to ask you, does Trump have a plan? You know, from negotiations on peace to escalation to targeting of bridges and infrastructure to peace talks also simultaneously being spoken about, to the latest round of sacking of highly placed individuals. Just what is the plan B, plan C, plan D that Trump seems to have?
Thank you, Navika. The point is very simple. Geopolitical analysis and events do not happen in a bar or a tea shop. These are plays made in advance for whatever the country wants to do. And in my opinion, what has happened with reference to Trump's policy is a kind of a US policy itself, that every single president, right from God knows when, has been talking about Iran will not be allowed to have nuclear weapons, uranium enrichment and all that. All presidents have failed to protect the world, and with that promise. As a result of which, Trump is a man of action, and he said, let me do it. If nobody else did, I'm going to do it. Barack Obama gave $1.7 billion to Iran in cash. We know that. This is not a story. The point here is very simple. There is only one element of negotiation, and that element is no uranium enrichment, no nuclear facilities. That is a US condition from God knows when. Even in Munich conference, I remember Lindsey Graham talking to a forum in which Dr. Jaishankar was there, that we have offered complete nuclear technology for civilian purposes. But Iran must decry that it will not, Iran must confirm it will not have nuclear.
But these are things of the past, Mr. Jha. Today we are sitting at the crossroads where Trump has now begun sacking his own people. I just want to get in Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen, the general being sacked, what does this show? Plans going awry, not exactly according to the strategy that was thought of before the plan. Even Bondi being sacked, talk of Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard. Is this desperation that is showing? Is it a lookout for scapegoats that is showing in the United States of America?
After Sushant says what he says, then I would like to comment on that issue. Thank you.
He has always looked for scapegoats. He's never taken responsibility on his own. And he still thinks he's in a kind of a reality show of The Apprentice, where he's simply telling people you are fired. But look, as far as Pam Bondi is concerned, that's, I think, a local domestic political issue. She wasn't able to deliver on everything he wanted. And as far as the general is concerned, or the series of generals who have been sacked, we're not entirely clear whether it has something to do with the war and as it's going, because I don't think the army generals are really calling the shots insofar as the military operations are concerned. They obviously would be involved, but perhaps there could be some disagreements out there. But there are some reports which suggest that the general was resisting orders by the defense secretary to sack a lot of senior generals or to withhold their promotions, and he was protesting against that. And perhaps he was seen as a bit of an inconvenient character, somebody with a bit of a spine, somebody who would, which is what the culture in the American system has been, that you do tell your political bosses how exactly you feel about things. And then, of course, it's up to them whether they accept or reject. Now, under normal circumstances, the political bosses would probably reject a representation made by generals or an advice given by generals, and the generals would accept it or resign. But in this particular case, it seems that it's a completely different kind of an administrative mindset, where even if you have a difference of opinion, that means you are disloyal, and that means that you need to leave your position. It seems to be more of that than anything else. Of course, the war is not going according to plan. And I don't think you need to be a genius to, unless, of course, you're a Trumpian and you've completely lost your mind. It is very clear that whatever they had thought, the assumptions, the rather heroic assumptions with which they entered the war, thinking that it will all be over in a matter of days, it hasn't played out that way. The reaction from the Iranian side hasn't been what was being anticipated. The Iranians have actually upped the ante to a point where the entire globe is hurting now, and everybody is blaming the Americans for it because they have not thought this thing through. For Trump to say that, in the future everything will be fine, look, in the future we will all be dead anyways, right? So we don't know what is the future he's talking about. And the kind of difficulties which many countries around the world are already facing. Navika, you haven't spoken about it. None of the Indian channels have spoken about it. Just on our border in Pakistan, over the last 1 month or so, petrol prices have gone up by over 100%. Over 100%. Can you imagine the kind of problems which are being inflicted on countries around the region?
And civilians and common people around the world, yes, absolutely, they're having to pay a price. But there is a one-upmanship that seems to be going on. President Trump says he's the greatest, and Peter Kuznick, yes, he's the greatest, maybe, but an F-15 has been downed by Iran. A bridge has been targeted by the United States of America. A pilot has been captured by Iran. State of Hormuz, the US and Israel wanted to keep it open. It's not really in their control just yet. Just what's going on, and where are the goals of the war now, and where is the end of the war according to the original plan? Can you please educate our viewers on which way this is going?
This war is an absolute disaster in every possible sense. It's not only illegal, according to international law, it's deeply immoral. And the leadership in the U.S. is so incompetent that it's become a laughingstock around the world. If it wasn't so serious, because people are being killed, infrastructure is being destroyed, the repercussions are felt globally, it would be funny. But it's not funny. Even though Trump says it's fun to keep on bombing sites on Karg Island, this is not fun. This is deadly serious. And the potential for escalation or just going out of control is enormous right now. The war is not going well for anybody. There are no winners here. There are losers. The United States is the biggest loser. Iran is the second biggest loser. Maybe Netanyahu thinks he's winning. Israel has been trying to get an American president to go to war with Iran for more than 3 decades. They finally found one who's stupid enough and ignorant to take their bait. They told him he'll go down as the greatest and bravest American president of all time. He's going to go down as the biggest fool. As an historian, I can tell you without any doubt, if historians were asked who is the worst American president in history, it's going to be almost unanimous. That is Donald Trump. And we see the way he's like a cornered beast right now. He's in a desperate situation. He's lashing out. He's firing people. He's looking for scapegoats, but he's not able to find them because this is his war. It was a war of choice. A war that we got into based on lies, which is not uncommon in American history. But at least when George W. Bush lied about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, he spent a year trying to convince the American people. Donald Trump didn't even lay this out for a minute, why he was doing this.
Well, I don't know who's desperate, more desperate, Iran, the United States, Israel. But certainly the desperation levels of common people across the world continues to rise because the impact of the war will keep playing out in times to come. Who's going to pay the price? Well, we still in the process of finding out. We leave it at that. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me on the News Hour tonight. And with that, it's a wrap. Good night, viewers. Be safe. Have a safe weekend. I'll be back on Monday with the News Hour at 9.